All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Alchemy Podcast. I'm your host, Doug Cartwright. I'm really looking forward to today's conversation. Someone who I've known for quite a while, but it's our first time meeting. Welcome to the show, Adam Allred.
Doug, I'm glad to be here. I've heard so much about you. I've listened to you speak. Yeah, this is our first time meeting in person.
Yeah, so excited. And I've been thinking about all these questions I have for you because you've been an absolute killer in the industry. And it's crazy that we're basically in March now and we're turning the corner. And before you know it, your company's gonna be deployed again.
Yeah. We're in the grind phase right now, getting everything ready. I feel like it's Normandy, dude. We're getting those kids loaded into the transport ships. Yeah. Go storm the beaches.
Here we go.
And go do the hardest thing of their lives.
What summer is this for you in door-to-door?
This is my 23rd.
So you're like the GOAT, the OG.
My business partner Byron's been doing this for 30 years.
Crazy.
30 years of door-to-door.
Yeah. So you've seen everything.
Yeah, almost.
The highs, the lows, the whole thing, right? And so we're getting into that corner. And one thing that has come up a lot in my coaching and conversation for my podcast is there's the same problems that kind of come up every summer, right? You're going to run into the kind of same issues. You're going to run with tech issues, reps aren't going to show up. There's going to be housing issues, right? That happens every single year, right? And so I'm curious from your perspective, I want to start with some wisdom from you of just, if there's let's say a new manager listening to this, whether in past solar, alarms, Vivint, whatever it may be, right? What are some of the conversations you have with your business partner to prepare for some of the storms that might come early in the season? Because I'm sure you guys have seen it every year. Mm-hmm. There's stuff going on. What are you guys talking about behind the scenes right now to prep your business for a successful launch? It's
a lot. We're doing a lot of technical training. We're getting the guys, doing their door approaches and practicing the methodology. But I really agree with what Tony Robbins says, that 80% of success is psychological.
Yeah.
So we have been leaning, especially this year, really heavily into getting guys to really nail down their vision and their why, starting with our leaders and then having them take it down through the ranks and having guys spend some time thinking about that. So again, they're really crystal clear. Why are they doing this summer? What is their vision at the end of the summer? And seeing themselves step into that place. And then being able to articulate a really clear why. Why is that your vision? Why is that what you want at the end of the summer? And then start manufacturing a story around that, helping them to start to create a story and identity that they can share with their office, that they can create the culture with their office. Because you've done this forever. I mean, culture is the number one factor for success. It's not pay scales. It's not even a particular company. It's the culture within the office that determines success more than anything else, in my opinion.
And how would you define culture?
Well, it's a broad term, but I think culture first starts with your identity. Like, who are you? What do you believe you are? What is your value system? What is your vision? Why are you doing this? Those types of questions. And then, you roll that into like how you do training and how you roll out incentives to reinforce culture, but it's always centered around an identity.
Yeah, one thing that stands out to me when I travel and visit a lot of offices in the summer, the way I see good culture is it's the energetic relationship that team members have with each other and with the office. It's just the energetic relationship. Is it upbeat, enthusiastic, engaged, motivated, inspired, right? Are people pushing each other? Or is it negative and down and low standards and people aren't keeping their commitments and people are going late to office and late to correlation? You can feel it. It's an energetic thing that's happening. And the leaders who can pull their culture together and create that positive energy, and to your point, and change that psychological experience, are those that navigate the summer most effectively. And one thing you touched on, I loved that I think a lot of reps make mistakes on is a lot of times people say like, all right, what do you want at the end of the summer? And they kind of know like, okay, I want to stay for school or whatever. But one thing you said that stood out to me was like, why do you want that? And I think there's a lot of people who don't ever ask why. You can ask someone, hey, what do you want? And they'll tell you, I want a new house, and I want $1 million, and I want a hot wife, and I want a super cool car. But very few people go to that next level of the why. Why do you actually want that? And to your point, those that have a clear enough what and a clear enough why are the ones who push through, can navigate.
Yeah, they can navigate anything. I think that's like Viktor Frankl's, Man's Search for Meaning. A man who has a why can pretty much endure anything, can get through anything. I agree with you on the energy thing. And I think that's where the identity comes in. When you start to create an identity and a psychology around it, it starts to create emotions. Emotions come from our thoughts, which creates energy. And then that creates the culture, the energy that guys are going through cells with. When I talk with these guys, so people will say, a lot of surface level stuff. Why do you want to go out this summer? Well, I want to pay for school. I want to buy a car. I want to do whatever. we really try to peel back from that because it's pretty shallow and superficial. And when it gets hard, most guys aren't going to be like, let me push really hard today so I can buy that Raptor at the end of the summer.
Yeah.
They lose sight of that really quick. So we start off with training our leaders on what is a good purpose and what is a good why. And I believe that the primary purpose of every man, it's women as well, but every person on this planet is to become the best version of themselves. Period. Like that's the game of life, is to level up and become the most comprehensive, powerful, badass version of yourself. And so your vision has to align with that primary purpose. So tell me, what is your vision at the end of the summer that aligns with you becoming better as a person? How does that make you a better person? And then why are you doing that? How does your why tie into this purpose of becoming your best? And I think that helps us navigate that so we don't just stay at the surface level, but it requires these guys to dig deep. Like they have to sit with it for a while. And we've, spent weeks sometimes with guys really working on what their vision is and what their why is. And I think it makes such a huge difference when the shots start getting fired.
Yeah, can you share a little bit more about what are some really good questions to ask as a follow-up? So if I say, hey, Adam, I'm stoked for the summer. The main reason I'm out here is just to be straight with you. It's just, I just want to pay for school.
Yeah. So then I'll kind of go deeper on that by just asking why.
Yeah.
So why do you want to do that?
I'm kind of nervous about the economy, and I think job market might be tough, and I just don't want to bring a bunch of debt into a marriage.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. And why don't you want to have debt in your marriage? What's the reason for that?
I just feel like it'd just be a massive stressor and just cause potential turbulence between me and my partner.
Perfect. And why don't you want to have that?
Because I want to have a really loving, expansive relationship. And I want to feel strong, and I want to feel like I'm a provider.
Good. Yeah, that makes sense. And why do you want that healthy relationship?
And I think it's part of, the human experience of really connecting someone and building a life with someone, and building that relationship and going to God together.
So you can see, just peeling back, now we're connected to God. We're connected to the divine.
Yeah.
And now you can say, okay, so you coming out and doing summer sales this summer and doing it well and hitting your vision is connected back to your divine identity. That this is how you connect with God. This is what God wants you to do to be best version of yourself, to level up. So usually it's just a series of asking why, and you'll get deep pretty quick with guys.
So good. Just why do you want that?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so good.
And you don't ask it like you're trying to challenge them. You agree with them. Everything they're saying is good, but you want to get to the root of it. Why are they going to go do something so difficult? Why do they feel like they need to level up and make money? What is the whole purpose of this? And you'll get back to this identity of who they are and what they believe they are. And that usually is some connection with the divine.
Yeah, and to your point, going back to Tony Robbins, he says, when you have a big enough what and a clear enough why, you can, and frankly, you can do it anyhow. Most reps get lost in the land of how. They get stuck in the tyranny of, Tony calls it the tyranny of how, where it's I
love that.
Oh, I'm going to go do, Golden Door. Well, shoot, I don't know if I can actually do that. I don't know if I can actually do a Golden Door. I've never done it before. Of course you don't know how to do it. You've never done it, right? Yeah. But if you get stuck on how am I supposed to get that much revenue to get a Golden Door, that's when you fail. But if you get really clear on what you want and why you want it, right? The how takes care of itself.
So I want to ask you a question in regards to that. But that makes me think of the story with Socrates where he's walking along with his disciple and his disciple says, how are you so wise? How did you become so wise? And he takes him out into the surf and they're walking in this waist deep water. And he says, he takes his disciple and puts him underneath the water. And, the guy's floundering and he holds him underneath the surf. And just before he's about to inhale water, he pulls him back up. Why did you do that? Why did you put me under the water? And he says, as soon as you want wisdom as much as you wanted oxygen, you'll have it. So you skip the how, you'll figure it out.
Figure it out.
The how works once you know, to your point, really clearly what you want. So my question for you is, how did you use that to be so successful at Vivint? You were the number one guy over there, which is no small feat. How did that play a role into your success?
I'll just get really vulnerable with you. And the reality is, I don't think I've ever shared this publicly before, but growing up, I always felt like I didn't quite belong. I didn't quite fit in with the cool kids group. I didn't fit in with my friends at school. I didn't fit in, and I desperately wanted to. I wanted to feel like I belonged. And belonging has always been something difficult for me. And so I have these memories of being a young kid, junior high, and just literally being in my bedroom crying. I feel like I'm not, my friends don't like me. I feel like I don't fit in. I feel like people don't like me. And I went, and so I navigated that, and that was hard. And I almost had told myself a story that I'll never quite fit in. And it was really sad. It's a kind of like a depressive state. But I tried to be fun and happy and try, kind kind of figured out. And then I showed up to Vivint and I saw some success really quickly early on, just kind of some natural success. And I started getting a lot of validation from a lot of people. It's like, whoa, you're really good at this. Like, whoa, you did 12 your first week ever? Like, what? And it was like fulfilling that void of like, oh, I belong here. Wait, I actually belong. People like me here. And it was like the first time in my life where I like had found a thing where I feel like I fully fit in and I belonged. And so I used that to drive me to success, because I'm like, oh, if I can go be the number one rep, then I totally fit in here. And everyone, when I belong, I remember going to Vivint events later in my career, once I started doing some company sales training, and I recorded a really epic training video. I think to the day it's the most watched training video in Vivint history. And people would pull me aside and be like, dude, your training video changed my life. Can I take a picture with you? And I'm like, I feel like a celebrity. I'm like, absolutely. And so like it was fulfilling this wound of unworthiness. And so this desire, this deep-rooted subconscious wound of unworthiness really drove me. And what I've come to learn as I've gotten older is it was actually dirty fuel that was driving me. It was a fuel of unworthiness that was causing me. And then eventually I burned out of Vivint, burned out. And so what I train a lot of my clients is actually, how do we fill your car with clean fuel? To your point, the connection with God, being the best version of yourself, being the most, strongest, best version in the eyes of my family and God, that's clean fuel. For me, it was, I'm unworthy, but if I'm successful, then I fit in. And eventually, if I put too much dirty fuel in my car for too long, you'll have what happened to me, mid 2010s, of just completely crashing out. And it wasn't until later, I'm like, oh, it's because I was filling my car with dirty fuel. Where if I would have done something to an activity you just took me through barely back then, completely could have changed the trajectory of my career.
Well, maybe it's a process. I see this a lot with men. I do a lot of coaching online with men, and I see these different stages of masculinity. The first one is the lost boy, where you have no direction. Generally, you haven't been raised by a father. You've basically got a list of things to do from a mother, from a school system. You roll into adulthood and you're looking for one to give you purpose and somebody to tell you what to do. And then you roll into the adolescent male, which is where you start to develop yourself, but you're doing it for external reasons. You're doing it for external validation. And most men that I talk to, myself included, this was a revelation that I had 4 years ago, that my biggest limiting belief was worthiness. Worthiness. Most men feel degrees of that. And so they start to fill that void with external success, external praise, but it's really shallow. It feels great at first. You're leveling up, you're being respected, you're developing yourself, you're getting things. There's an endorphin release with that, a dopamine release, that you're accomplishing things. But anything that's focused on the external ultimately is shallow and will always lead to a shallow life and a lack of fulfillment. But the process is shifting from that to the internal validation. It's when you start to validate yourself and you're no longer looking to be accepted by others. It's not really important anymore. You're looking to be accepted by yourself. And that is, connected with your definition of what God is, the divine.
I mean, it's so powerful. And I call that, I call it the performer phase, where it's like, if I just have enough money or a hot enough wife or cool enough car, then I'll be good. Then I'll be worthy. Right. And so, in my life, and a lot of people I work with too, this worthiness wound as a man is very common, and most people suppress it. They don't talk about it. So I'm curious, on your journey, what did your journey look like to healing that unworthiness wound?
So I went through a really rough first marriage, 8.5 years of just pure hell, and then went through a really rough divorce. Wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy, and then kind of processed that and was coming out of that. And I was trying to share on social media things that I was learning through that process, because part of the problem in that marriage is I thought I was doing everything right. I was playing the script that I'd been handed from family, from church. I was doing everything I was told to do, checking boxes. Why isn't this working? Then feeling frustrated at God, angry, resentful, and carrying this victim mindset out of it. And I learned that, to correct that. I realized that I was off. And I wanted to share some of those thoughts with people on social media, other men, so they didn't have to go through the same process. In the course of that, one of my buddies invited me out to come speak at an event that he was doing in Arizona for realtors. And he had us do this little exercise at the end of one of the events where we wrote on an arrow our limiting belief, and then you put the arrow on the soft spot of your neck and you press onto it and you break the shaft of the arrow. And it was kind of cool, but a little
Yeah.
cheesy to me. I was like, oh, whatever, I'll do it.
Symbolic.
Yeah, but symbolic. It was kind of cool.
Beautiful.
So I'm sitting there and I'm trying to think, what is my biggest limiting belief? And it was an aha moment. I didn't realize it. I'd never really sat there and thought about it other than surface level stuff and exercises similar to this. But I sat there and I realized like I had this sense of not being worthy. And a lot of that I think came from my religious upbringing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this idea that God is measuring you on your worthiness.
Were you raised LDS?
I was raised LDS, yeah. And I have a lot of great things that came from being raised LDS too. So it's a mixed bag, but the LDS culture leans heavily into worthiness. Whether you're worthy to take a sacrament, worthy to go on a mission, worthy to go to the temple. And I had this idea that God was measuring me on my worthiness my whole life. That was just subconscious running in the background. Most of us, our identity is based off of programming. Like how we've been raised, these inputs from our family, from church, from school, from whatever. And we don't even realize that 90 to 95% of our thoughts are subconscious. And so this reality that we're looking at is really a subconscious reflection of this programming that's just going on in the backdrop. And when you can sit with that and bring that to the surface, then I could look at that and realize like that wasn't true. And it was one of these huge changes, not just for me personally, but
how do you shift that story? Because it's so ingrained in like your being, right? It's so deeply programmed. It's not only in your mind, but you carry it in your physical body too. Like that energy is stored in your body, right? Body Keeps a Score, a phenomenal book on healing.
Yep.
How do you break those patterns and those self-limiting beliefs that have been, ingrained in your body for, 20, 30, 40 years?
Well, I think you have to start having the courage to question your stories. Instead of just letting them run on automatic and just say, that's who I am, that's how I am. And you just tell this story. You were talking about a story you told yourself coming up where, you didn't feel like you fit in, you weren't accepted. This was a story. Was it actual reality? There may have been some reality to it, or it may have just been mostly a story, or the story may have been creating the reality, but our perspectives are these stories that we tell ourselves. And so having the courage to question the story and say, okay, is this true? Mm-hmm. Is it provably true? Can I prove that what I'm thinking is exactly true? And most of the time you can't. Probably 100% of the time your story, you can't say it's absolutely true. So what's another way of looking at this? And then you can offer a different idea of what that is. And the cool thing is that, what I've realized over this journey is that God has given us the power to create whatever story we want. You get to make your story up. Most of us don't realize that. We've outsourced the storytelling to the past programming in our primitive brain. We don't realize that we can actually go in and start constructing a new story. And in any, this is something I talk about all the time. In any event, the event is actually neutral. There's no morality in the event. It's not good or bad. It just happens. Even things that we think are horrific, like war or whatever, these are just neutral events when they come to us. Mm-hmm. And we're not responsible. It's not our fault. Everything that happens to us isn't our fault. But when it comes to us, it's our responsibility because it doesn't stay neutral. We're going to tell a story about it. And if we're not intentional about how we craft that story, the default settings are going to kick in and they're going to create a negative story because we're primitive brain is wired for survival. We're wired for conserving energy, and we're wired for indulging in pleasure. That's like the default settings. And then you have all this programming stacked on top of that, which most of it is not positive. And so you're going to craft a negative story about things. So if you can start to question that, and for me, that was the only way that I woke up to that and started to realize this was through God. I remember, like, for example, this is a personal story, but when I was going through the divorce, the story I was telling myself was my life is over. I failed. I'm a loser. God didn't show up for me. This shouldn't have happened to me. Yeah. These were all the things I was saying.
This is an error.
Yeah, right? This is an error. And this is bullshit.
Yep.
Shaking my fist at the heavens. And I never turned away from God. I always knew on some level that, I was being a kid throwing a temper tantrum and I had to eat my broccoli. And this was the broccoli. I had to eat it. But I remember being so miserable day in and day out for months and, going to bed, just not wanting to be alive, waking up in the morning sick to my stomach, just forcing myself to get through the day. And often, like, I would have these prayers with God. I'd go to the gym as my therapy to try and get ready for the day. And then I would go take a shower before going to work. And I would sit in that shower sometimes for an hour and just pray, just to try and get together enough grit to
What did your prayer sound like?
Just like, God, please help me. Like, just sitting there like, God, please give me the strength to get through this. I've got responsibilities. It was a lot of this, like, just operating from this place of total scarcity. And I remember one time asking God, it wasn't the first time I asked this many times, but I asked God, I said, God, please just take this depression from me for a minute. Just give me 20 minutes where I don't feel like this today. Just take it from me, please. And I had a voice in my head. I've had maybe 3 occasions like this in my life where I've heard the voice of God, or at least what I believe is the voice of God, speak to me. And God said, son, if I take away the pain, I take away the learning.
Wow.
And that's where I realized I had to change my story. And I did. I stopped looking at it as a burden. And I said, oh, okay, God's not trying to punish me, and he's not going to come save me because there's something divine in this. He's going to help me learn a lesson right now. And so in that moment, I shifted my story and I started to try and think of it differently. I started challenging the story that I was telling in my head, that this was happening to me. And I started telling myself, okay, this is happening for me. I don't understand it yet. And I started expressing gratitude. At first I was faking it. Like, thank you for this, God. I hate this, but after a couple of weeks of really expressing gratitude for it, I started to really feel gratitude for it. I said, you know what, if I feel depression for the rest of my life, it's good for me. I can do this. I can get through this next day. I can get through the next couple of hours. I know I can. I've already proven that. And this is teaching me humanity. This is teaching me empathy. It's giving me, broadening my human experience. And I started really feeling gratitude for the experience because I changed my story. And then as soon as I started feeling gratitude, the depression went away.
Wow.
Like instantly.
I mean, Adam, it's so synchronistic that you're sitting in this chair right now. One thing that's going on in my life right now, and I haven't shared, is I've had, I keep running into a similar pattern in romantic relationships. And I just had a recent connection kind of break down and I sabotage them. And I do kind of silly things, or I kind of push them away, and they're great women. And it's kind of been a pattern of mine for a long time. So I'm like, there's something under the hood here there's a story under the hood that's running, that's causing turmoil. And it's happened, I can name, my last 5 romantic partners, amazing women, all could have been amazing wives. Mm-hmm. But I couldn't get it across the finish line. Like something was happening. And so I reached out to one of my coaches. And I'm a big believer as a coach, I have 3 coaches. And so I'm like, I need to figure out what's going on. And just recently, in the last 2 weeks, we've uncovered that a subconscious story that's running is I'm unworthy. Because when I was of mission age, I got sent home from my mission early for going out, quote unquote, unworthy. Mm-hmm. And so, God doesn't think I'm worthy. I'm not worthy for God, and I'm unworthy. And then I had a high school sweetheart, girl that I was in love with. Like this was my person. We had so much fun. We laughed. My family loved her. Her family loved me, and everyone knew we were gonna get married. Like amazing. And I get home from my mission early, and she says to me, she goes, I can never marry someone unworthy. And I didn't really recognize, I knew these things happened. I knew there was stuff there, but I didn't understand the depth of how much they were actually affecting me. Mm-hmm. And so working with my coach recently, I'm like, oh my gosh. I work with people on this stuff all the time, and I still have blind spots. Mm-hmm. And I'm literally in the process right now of working out my unworthiness wound. And it's been life-changing. And, something I want to share, it's been really helpful because you talk about changing your story. And I just want to share this because it's the most helpful tool I've had. There's a woman named Byron Katie.
I know who she is.
Yeah, called The Work. Mm-hmm. And she says, you take your story through 4 questions, right? And you kind of did it, right?
I did. So I was doing a little Byron Katie.
You were doing a little Byron Katie. So question 1 is it true that I'm unworthy? Okay, maybe, right? Then you go to question number 2. Can you 100% prove as a matter of fact that it's true?
And the answer is no.
No, it's not true. Question 3, how do you act and feel when you believe this story? Mm-hmm. I act insecure, I self-sabotage, my energy's low, I'm needy, I'm, not in my masculine, right? How do I feel? I feel down, I feel depressed, I feel insecure, I feel shameful, I feel unworthy. Cool. Question number 4, if we could eliminate that thought in your head of I'm unworthy and just completely evaporated it from your being, you never thought, it was never in your body, it was never in your brain, how would you act and feel?
Free.
Confident, free, enthusiastic, upbeat, playful, fun, right? Sexy, all the things. And then the last piece is called the turnaround. So if you're already giving energy to a thought you've already proven isn't true, I'm unworthy, what's the exact opposite of that thought? The turnaround, exact opposite. The exact opposite is I am worthy of unconditional love and expansion and joy all the time. Cool. Now start giving energy to that thought and start literally chipping away. So the fact that you're talking about this as I'm in this process myself right now, is just with the unworthiness in the church thing. It's really amazing, because I thought when I did my first healing journey in 2017 that I kind of worked it out. Now we're 9 years later and I'm like, we need to go back into the cellar because there's still some stuff in the basement that I didn't quite clean out.
So one, it takes a ton of courage to do what you're doing. And I'm speaking from personal experience, and I also continually discover blind spots. You never arrive, right? It's always this process. It takes a lot of work, and it takes a lot of time sitting with yourself and processing this. And every emotion that we have is true in the fact that it shows you what's underneath the hood. It may not be helpful emotion, but it's true, because the emotion is stemming from something that you're thinking. And so if you can, instead of trying to resist the emotion, I don't want to feel angry today. I'm going to white knuckle my way into not having road rage, or instead of, I don't want to feel depressed today, or I don't want to feel sad. Sit with it, process it, don't resist it, welcome it, and then try to understand what's articulating that, because it's a check engine light of what's going on under the hood, the story you're telling yourself. And for most of us men, we do this automatically. When we feel any form of pain, usually it's emotional pain, shame, guilt, unworthiness, whatever that is, we bury it.
Push it away.
We don't want to look at it because it makes us feel uncomfortable. And so the natural instinct is to bury that. And then we continue to heap more and more dirt on these roots. They're buried in our garden. And then we add more roots to those garden, and we put more dirt on top of that. And pretty soon you're just spending your entire life weeding, and you don't know where these weeds are coming from. Why am I always angry? Why am I always, anxious? Why am I yelling at some old dude in traffic? Why am I yelling at my kids? Why do I burn down relationships? Whatever that is, it's just weeding because we don't get to these roots. And when you can spend some time, and there's different ways to do it, but when you can spend some time pulling back this dirt and look at the roots, that's where the magic's at, is where you face, who said that, like, the cave you're afraid to enter has the treasure you seek?
That is Carl Jung.
Yes, Carl Jung. Yeah, exactly. And I think of this story, one of my favorite stories from the Old Testament is when Moses, the children of Israel being bit by the snakes, right? And it's terrifying. Their children are dying. They're dying. Snakes are everywhere. They're this horrific thing. And then Moses does something interesting. He puts a snake on the staff and says, look at the snake and be healed. And most people won't. And when we read it at a surface level, it just kind of sounds weird.
Yeah.
But when you read it at a deep psychological level, and Jordan Peterson points this out, what Moses was doing was profound. He was holding up in front of the people the very thing that they were afraid of. And he was saying, if you want to be healed, you have to look at what you're afraid of.
Look and live.
If you won't look, you're going to be trapped by this forever. It will destroy you. But if you can have the courage to look at the pain and sit with that, that's where you can start to heal. This is my favorite thing to talk about. I'm going through a book right now by Brach called Radical Compassion. Incredible book, right? And so you talk about, you got to feel it, right? In my experience as a coach too, work with a lot of men, most people have never learned how to feel their feelings. And in this book, Radical Compassion, Tara Brach has an incredible acronym on how to feel your feelings. And I want to share it with you and the listeners. And first off too, someone actually asked me, what's the purpose of feeling your feelings? And I said, you feel it so you can let it go. So it's not a weed anymore. You have to feel it so you can let it go. So it's not a part of your life anymore. So how do you feel your feelings? And her acronym that she shares in her book, this Tara Brach, Radical Compassion, it's called RAIN, RAIN. There's a storm happening. There's rain happening. I need to go through rain to feel the feeling. The first R is I have to recognize. I have to literally give it attention, recognize. So I'm feeling anger. I recognize that I'm feeling anger. A is allow it. Don't push it away. Don't sweep it under the rug. I'm going to allow this anger to be here. Just give it permission to be here. I is investigate. And a question that I love, she says, is which version of me, how old is the version of me that's actually angry right now? Is it 45-year-old or is it actually 12-year-old version of me? Who's actually angry here? Yeah, this is 12-year-old me feeling insecure, feeling not enough, feeling not good enough. Okay, cool. And then the N is the nurture. And the question is, what did that 12-year-old or whatever number it is, what did that version of myself need in that moment, but did not get? And can I give that? Can I give them what they didn't get? Can I give that to them now? Close your eyes, put your hand on your heart. Okay. Hey, brother,
little Doug, whatever, like you totally belong. People love having you around. You're so worthy, right? You're a joy in so many people's lives.
And more importantly, you love you.
Yeah. I love you. I got you.
I love you.
I love you. I got you. I love you. I got you. I got us. And it's just been a really powerful tool that I've been using recently of just learning how to feel your feelings, right? And why do you feel your feelings? You feel your feelings so you can let it go. And I think what you're saying right now is so important. I think it's when I'm onboarding a new client, I kind of talk about feeling your feelings and all this stuff. I always kind of say, hey, this is going to sound extreme, and I know you know this to be true, but this is going to be the most important work you do in your entire life. Mm-hmm. Because until you do, you'll continue to self-sabotage relationships, finances, marriage, money, friendships, yourself. Quality of life is going to go low. And so just to sit next to you here and see you having gone through a storm of depression and come out on the other side, it's just really inspiring. And I just want to acknowledge you as like a brother of like, for doing the work and getting through and then helping others. Because I think it's the most important thing you can do as a human being is do this. So I just really admire you and respect you for that.
Oh, bro, I appreciate that. Likewise, I feel like I'm getting all motivated and getting like goosebumps when we're having these conversations. To build off of what you were saying and teaching, I fundamentally believe the most important relationship a man will ever have is the relationship he has with himself. And I will get people push back on that, be like, no, it's God. And I was like, yeah, but your relationship with God is a reflection of your relationship with yourself. An example of that is look at the Pharisees. They didn't have healthy relationships with themselves, and they manufactured this God that was tyrannical. And so everything else comes from the relationship that you have with yourself. And your relationship with others is a direct reflection, just like you were talking about with the last 5 relationships. The relationships that you have with other people are a mirror for the relationship that you have with yourself. And most of us are stuck in this primitive story, this programming of shame and unworthiness. So we meet ourselves with criticism. The inner voice is always talking badly about ourselves. We're always putting ourselves down. Oh, you're a loser. Oh, you suck. Oh, you're never going to get it. This voice just keeps kicking us down. The reality is that just like you can't criticize somebody else into being better, you can't shame yourself into being better.
Yeah.
And when you understand this, and you understand that the only true form of love that actually exists, in my opinion, is without expectations. Mm-hmm. It's the only way to true love. It's unconditional because otherwise, on some level, it's selfish. Yeah. If you're meeting any relationship with an expectation of how they have to act to make you happy or feel a certain way, it's not love for them. It's selfishness. And when you can step into that relationship with yourself, where you stop meeting yourself with expectations, and what that looks like is authenticity, where what you say and do aligns with what you say and do aligns with what you think and feel. Mm. You're no longer trying to be accepted because you already accept yourself. You meet yourself without expectations. It's the first step, in my opinion, to what actual spirituality is. It's not religious performance. It's not rituals. It's not a membership in something. Spirituality, in my opinion, is meeting yourself right where you're at with grace and with love and with understanding and acceptance. And then the opposite side of that coin is because you love yourself, you want yourself to be better. But you're not meeting yourself with criticism or shame anymore. You're meeting yourself with, I love you enough that I want the best for you. I want you to level up here. I want you to get better. And when you do that, the change becomes automatic. Encouragement is what creates energy. To your point, we were talking about culture and offices and types of energy. When you meet yourself with encouragement, you meet yourself with patience, and you're not being delusional. You're not like, you can still say, hey, I screwed up, but I'm learning. This was a great opportunity for me to develop. I see you, buddy. I know what you were trying to do, mm-hmm. talking to yourself. You were trying to do this. You didn't get it right. We'll get better. We'll learn this. You're meeting yourself from a place of abundance, and that's where real change takes place. And now you can step into relationships, and you can meet other people without expectation. You can meet them with acceptance, but you can never do that until you're doing that with yourself first. And that's why if you're in relationships that aren't making sense, or you're frustrated with the relationships, that's like emotions. It's a check engine light on what does your relationship with yourself look like?
It's so profound. And a question that I have for you is, when I first started doing this deep work in 2017, I did a lot of self-love work. And I saw incredible results. I'm now learning, 9 years later, they're like, the process of self-love and the journey of self-love is never ending. And I'm still in it, and I still got to go back to it. So I'm curious, from your perspective, you had a really dark time in your life where you were depressed. You worked on self-love, right? You've then navigated, you kind of got some air. It seems like you came up for air. What has the journey of self-love look like for you after you've had kind of these dark moments? Like, what does your process look like of continuously learning to love yourself?
Well, one, I want to share the biggest epiphany I had for that was having children. Mm-hmm. So when I had my first child, my oldest daughter, in the hospital room, right when I held her, I could feel myself changing. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm changing so rapidly right now. I can't even process this.
So my favorite question to ask people who have their kids, and actually we talked about Alex Allred. She gave my favorite definition ever, but what's it like to have a kid? To someone who's never had a kid, how can you possibly explain it?
It was the first time that I experienced what unconditional love was. Mm. It was the first time that I felt like I got a glimpse of how God feels about us.
Wow.
Because I was like, this kid could grow up to be Charles Manson and I would never stop loving him, ever. Like, I will be there for this kid as long as I have breath. Nothing she can do will change. I have no expectations on her. I just have unconditional love. And then that was a framework that I could use later in life when I'm going through all of this to say, oh, how I felt about my daughter is how God feels about each one of us. Maybe that's how I should feel about myself. And, that's a psychological level. On a pragmatic level, it was really training myself to talk good to myself. Mm. Every time I started being critical, catching myself and changing the story and then saying the opposite. Oh, you suck. No, dude, you're dope. I like you, man. And it's weird. It sounds awkward. Like I'd be having conversations with myself like, bro, you're a stud. And I'm not saying it to be egotistical. I'm saying it to show love for that little boy that's inside each one of us. Yeah. To say, I see you and I love you unconditionally. And you are good just the way you are, even though you're deeply flawed and imperfect. And I can see that. And I'm not putting blinders on. I don't meet you with any expectations. And that's me saying that to myself. And again, once you're healthy with yourself, and it's an internal journey. Yeah, it's not like you ever arrive. It's a process you continually work on. And if you don't work on it, entropy kicks in and you're going to start finding yourself being critical again and old programming rising to the surface and the primitive brain and everything else starting to do the storytelling for you. So you have to be vigilant with it always. But once you're healthy with yourself, now I'm in my second marriage and it's night and day. I mean, I'm the happiest I've ever been in my entire life. My marriage is absolutely phenomenal. But if I hadn't been right with myself, if I hadn't learned this process, I would have stepped into this marriage and it wouldn't be where it's at right now.
Wouldn't have worked. Mm. Yeah. How old were you when you met Kylie?
39, I believe.
And then how old were you when you had your first kid with Kylie?
I was 41. 42.
Yeah. Was there ever, one thing I work with a lot of men too, there's kind of this, I don't know if you want to call it shame or this fear of like, oh my gosh, I'm almost 40 now. I still haven't found my person, right? I don't know if I'm ever gonna have kids. I'm getting too old, right? Did you ever have any of those fears and thoughts after your divorce?
No, not after the divorce. In fact, the opposite. I went through the divorce and I started getting into this process of discovering myself and loving myself. And I was like, I will never get married again, ever. And I wasn't bitter. It wasn't like, a lot of my buddies who were going through divorce at the same time. There must have been something in the water. They were traumatized and they were upset and blaming themselves or blaming her or whatever else. And I had worked through that and I was just so happy being me. And I had 3 kids. I was like, I don't need to have any kids because that's really the thing I was most excited about in life was having children from an early age. I've always loved kids and I had them. I had 3 beautiful kids. And so I was like, I'm never going to put myself in that situation.
You were sad. You're like, I'm good. I'm sad.
And I was happy. Yeah. I'd come home from work and there's no one telling me what to do or criticizing me. It's like, I could just take a nap or read a book. This is novel. Like, I'm not messing this up. Dude. I'm so happy.
Nobody move. But no one touch anything.
I think it's important because it goes back to what this whole idea of having a healthy relationship with yourself. Once I was whole and complete, now I was prepared to have a healthy relationship. Once I didn't need a relationship, neediness is one, first of all, it's the most unattractive quality that you can have.
Needy is creepy.
It's creepy.
I see it on the doors. If you're needy on the doors, it's creepy.
It's commission breath. We call it commission breath. It's the same thing. But if you're needy with a woman, it's going to turn her off. If you're needy with friends, they don't want to talk to you. So when you have this deficit that you need somebody else to fill, one, is a repellent. So you're getting further and further away from having that repelled. And 2, it's not an honest story because you don't need anybody to make you happy. The big lie that we're taught as children is that we're responsible for other people's emotions and other people are responsible for our emotions, for how we feel. And so we think, I just want to make my wife happy. Truth is, you can't make your wife happy. And she can't make you happy. So if you're like, I'll just be happy when I find the right girl, you're living in this delusional state based off of this programming that we've been taught as kids. Don't offend Sally. Don't hurt Sally's feelings. we have this idea, or you made me mad. I'm externalizing my responsibility for my own emotions to somebody else by saying you made me mad or that made me mad. The reality is that we are responsible for our emotional state. No one else is. You can't make somebody else happy, and somebody else can't make you happy.
It reminds me, so I'm a big Michael Singer fan, and he wrote a book called The Untethered Soul.
I've read it. Brilliant.
He's my number one teacher in my life.
Brilliant.
And he was in a lecture one time and someone asked him a question and he's like, talk about marriage. And he goes, the best marriages, most aligned spiritual marriages are when you have two people who love themselves so much that they want to share that energy with each other. And I'm like, bam, that's it.
Nailed it.
I'm full of love and enthusiasm and joy.
You're already whole.
And I'm going to express it. And you're going to be a recipient of that. And she's full of love and she wants to express that love pouring out of her being with you. And I'm like, that's the relationship.
And then it becomes synergy.
Yeah.
It doesn't become dependency. And both of you are individuals. Both of you have your own journey that you're on and becoming the best version of yourself. And then you get to share that journey with each other. But yeah, the biggest red flag to me, when somebody's like, I want to be in a relationship, is when they feel like they need a relationship. I'm like, that's like the biggest indication you're not ready.
Yeah.
Until you can get to that place where you don't need a relationship, you're happy and fulfilled right where you're at. Now you're in a position to do that. And I didn't understand that.
I think it's okay to want one, but at the moment you need one,
bingo,
you're done.
Yeah. And there's all kinds of things we want. We want to achieve this. We want to accomplish that. Those are healthy things. Yeah. But if we think our identity or our self-worth or our happiness is contingent on achieving something, we're missing the mark. And that was something I didn't understand, but now I do looking back, is that because I'd stepped out of that divorce and processed it and was super happy being single, now I met Kylie, who was super independent, badass, cool, living her best life. Badass. She's the coolest person I've ever met in my entire life. Yeah. She's way cooler than I am. I recognize I won the lottery with her. But now I wasn't needing something from her. And I think that was probably one of the most attractive things to her. Was in that relationship. I was one of probably the only relationships she'd ever been in where the guy wasn't trying to get something from her. Yeah. I wasn't trying to get physical intimacy from her. I wasn't trying to get her to like me. I was just like, hey, we're going out. Cool. Let's have a good time. And
you're cool. I'm cool. Let's just be with each other.
Yeah. And it just naturally evolved into this amazing marriage and amazing relationship now. And it's better than I could have ever imagined a marriage being.
What was the moment when you were like, because you shared like, I'm never getting married again. I'm good. I'm set. Right. What was the moment for you when you're like, oh shit, I think I need to marry this girl?
Oh man, I've got a story for this. All right. So my first date with Kylie, we met on Hinge. So we're on a dating app. And the only reason why I was on Hinge is, do you know who Garrett Robbins is?
I do know Garrett.
Garrett's my buddy.
Okay, cool. So love Garrett.
Garrett and I knocked doors for First Line Security at my first summer. And I'd known him a little bit then. We weren't in the same office, but I'd met him through First Line and then kind of followed him on social media. And then like 17 years later or whatever that time was, I'm going through my divorce and I see Garrett walk into the gym I'm in. I'm just running on the treadmill. And I'm like, Garrett Robbins, I haven't seen him in 17 years. And he immediately recognized me. And this kinship, we're both going through divorces. What's up? Trading war stories, catch up. Garrett's a stud. And he was like, dude, you got to get on these dating apps. You got to get on these dating apps. So I get on this dating app with Hinge. I'm on it for 3 days and I see Kylie. And I think Kylie's catfishing because it's in the middle of the summer. And I don't run summer sales teams anymore, but I own summer sales company, Ninefold. And she's in her bio on her dating app, manager for Vivint. And I'm like, you're a manager for Vivint on a dating app in Utah in the summertime. I'm like, this is some sweaty dude at a keyboard.
This isn't real.
So I just called it out. Like, I was just like, oh, you're the sausage king of Chicago. And she's like, replies back, we start bantering. And then I still don't know who she is. I had no idea who she was. And so I asked Garrett, and Garrett's like, oh yeah, Kylie Frank, she's top 5 in Utah. And I was like, oh, maybe she's a real person. So it turned out she was managing for Vivint. You know this. And she was back for the summer along with her brothers because her dad was passing away. Mm-hmm. And they'd been waiting because they knew he was going to pass and they didn't know how long it was going to take. And her mom's like, you need to get out and do something. So she jumped on this dating app and we just happened to link up. So her mom's like, get out of the house, go do something, go hang out with this guy. So she drives to my house. She doesn't want me to pick her up in case she needs to bail, right. And in case I'm a creep so she can dip. So she comes over and I'm like, hey, you want to take the truck or the Harley to go grab some sushi? And she's like, the Harley. And I'm like, oh, this girl's pretty cool. Like she's jumping on the back of this motorcycle with me. So we had a great first date, but I was like, I'm never getting married. Like no shot.
Did you tell her that?
No. Well, I might have in different ways. You start talking about those things. Yeah. The ironic thing is she went home that day and told her mom she found the guy she was going to marry.
Wow.
But in my mind,
she knew right away.
She knew right away. Yeah. And I was like, no shot. And part of it was because I was judging a book by its cover. Sure. Kylie's got her thirst trap pictures up on her social media, and she's in a different energy. And I'm a divorced guy with 3 kids.
She's slinging deal. She's a Vivint bro.
She's partying. She's living that young life.
The Vivint life.
And I'm not interested in any of that stuff. I'm an older guy with kids. And but I'm like, she's fun to hang out with. So we just kind of kept hanging out. And every time I hung out with her, I was just like, the most attractive thing about Kylie, in my opinion, amongst so many things, is how authentic she is. She's just who she is. And she's not belligerent about it. She's not an asshole about it. She just doesn't hide who she is. It was so refreshing. I kept looking for the deceit. Dave Chappelle says you're dating the representative for the first 6 months. And I'm like, where's the representative at? Which part of this is real? I've kind of, questioned that. And she asked me to come up to her dad's funeral. He passed away like 2 days after we met. And I went up there and I got a totally different look at who she was. I saw this depth to her, and I saw her family, and I met Trevor, and I met Brady, and I met these guys that I just thought, these guys are cool. Her mom. And so I started feeling really strongly, but I was still never going to get married. And then fast forward, I told you this is a long story, but we went out I was marrying my buddy on the beach in Costa Rica.
Cool.
And I took her with me. So me and some buddies and our girls, our wives, my girlfriend, were going out for my buddy to get married. And, for a long time, I'd been really interested in psilocybin. I'd never taken it. And I was like, listening to people like Jordan Peterson or Joe Rogan or whoever. And I was like, man, if that could be a breakthrough for me to connect more deeply with God, with myself, super interested in it, had never tried it. And my buddy's like, hey, I got mushrooms. And I was like,
let's go in, baby.
I'm going to do it.
Time to go in.
So I took some psilocybin. I don't even remember how much I took at the time. And we're up in this place called La Fortuna, up on this volcano with these hot springs. Each of our little bungalows has its own hot springs fed by the volcanic water. It's just incredible. You're in the jungle. And I was the only one doing psilocybin. I walked out into the water.
So you're going solo.
I was going solo
journey.
It was for me. I was like, I really wanted to experience it. I'd been fascinated, studying, reading a lot about it. And so I go out into this water and I'm sitting out there by myself. And I just felt connected to everything. And I could feel the water, every drop. It was raining, every drop hitting the water. And it was this singularity event. The only way I know how profound that experience was, my first psilocybin trip, is to connect it with the first time having a child.
Yeah.
Like I'll never be the same after this.
Cosmic oneness.
Yeah. You see something, you experience something that you can never package back your life the way it once was.
You can never undo it.
You never can, and you don't want to. And it's a healthy thing for me. Yeah. So I'm out there having this experience, and then Kylie comes out, and I just felt so connected to her. And I assume you know what the experience is. You're talking from somebody who has experience. One of the things is it strips away all of your bullshit.
Yeah.
Like all the stories you're telling yourself, the walls you've built up, stuff I wasn't even aware of was pulled away. It was just authentic me, and it was authentic Kylie. And I was like, this is my person.
Wow.
Like I know it. I knew it. Like it was no question. And it wasn't some drug-induced people who aren't familiar with the experience. It wasn't like that. It wasn't like I was like, I love you so much. It's not like you're
in your being.
The clearest you've ever seen anything in your entire life, I'm seeing in this moment in this experience in Costa Rica. And I was like, dude, she is the person for you. And I have never, ever doubted that since.
Wow.
Not once. It has only become reinforced over and over and over again that experience in the jungles with Kylie, me being alone on psilocybin, that's how I knew. And so it just took away. The funny part was then I was like, baby, let's get married. Like that
You're
night,
ready to go.
I'm ready to go. And she's like, yeah, about that. And then she tells me a week later, she's like, you know what? I was at church and I don't think we're ready to get married yet. And so I think she's telling me no. So I'm like, oh man, was I wrong?
Did I misinterpret that?
It was so real. It was so real. And it was just her getting cold feet.
Sure.
She'd been single for a long time. And here I am now, finally pressing.
You've seen the light and you're ready.
And I'm ready to go. And now she's pulling back. So then I pulled back. And so then she came back. And
what was that dance like back and forth? How long was that process?
I don't remember. It was like a few months. She was getting ready to go back out for the next summer. And so I pulled back. Like I still was hanging out with her, but I was like, dude, did I get this all wrong? Like I wasn't bitter or upset that she was saying that. It didn't
that messes with your head. If you have, when you're in a medicine ceremony and you get crystal clear clarity, in the moment, it's like, this is the most true thing on earth. And then sometimes you go out into the real world and it doesn't unfold and it can create a lot of friction.
So that's what was going on.
Yeah.
Like I wasn't bothered by her. I was like, yeah, dude, I knew this was true. This was so obvious. But the reality is Kylie, she'll tell you if you ask her, she knew the whole time. She just got cold feet for a second, and she still wanted to go out and do one more big summer for Vivint. And so I ended up proposing to her right before she left for the summer. And it was awesome. And then she left for the summer to go prove herself and go do the cup and go out there. And she started calling me like, it's so funny because she started calling me like day one, I want to come home. And I'm like, girl, you committed. You got to get out there and level up. Let's go. I'm in door sales. You can't quit. We don't
treat him like one of your reps.
I was kind of coaching her and gassing her up. And it's so funny because when I was in my younger stage in college, knocking doors, every summer, I always felt as a man, you should leave behind a girl. There should be someone missing you, misty-eyed. And I'd done that every summer. And now she's leaving me and I'm the one left behind, misty-eyed and missing her. But I'm telling her to stick it out and stay out there and get the job done.
Man, that is so inspiring, Adam. I'm curious, how far do we have to go in the past for a past version of Adam to see your life today and think that it'd be impossible to get here?
Yeah, 6 years ago, 7 years ago. Yeah, when I was going through that divorce, the divorce is any divorce. Anybody who goes through divorce can relate to this. It is eviscerating. And I've heard people say who have lost loved ones that divorce is harder than losing a loved one because there's closure on it. Where a divorce, one, I had been raised my whole life that it was my job to make her happy. That was what I'd been taught at church, which is just nonsense.
Yeah.
I had been taught that this was a moral covenant that I'd made with God. So I couldn't break it without letting God down and being unworthy in God's eyes. So I have to stay with this. And your identity's in it. You're coaching your guys doing door-to-door sales, never quit. You keep working at it. You finally get there. I believe that. I'd done that my whole life. And then you're having an identity crisis. You're having a faith crisis. You're having all these crises, a financial crisis. And then on top of that, you have kids. And you're like, that's probably the hardest part is like, I'm now passing this legacy of a divorce onto my kids. How is this going to affect them going through a divorce? And all of that just becomes, at least for me, it became really, really unbearable. And it was interesting because to my point earlier about how I was really resisting it and I was really angry with God. I never turned my back on God. I would always say my prayers, but I'd be like, God, I don't know if it's okay to drop that bomb, but this is fucked up. This is bullshit. I did everything I knew how to do right and it didn't work. And I remember being particularly frustrated. You're familiar with the Book of Mormon. There's a scripture in there, Ether 12:27. If men come to me, I'll show them their weakness. I give them in weakness that they may be humble. My grace is sufficient for men that humble themselves before me. For if they own themselves faith in me, I'll make their weaknesses become strengths unto them. I had believed that my whole life. I'd experienced that. If you humble yourself before God, God will strengthen you. It was like the law of gravity. I've always experienced that. But it hadn't worked in that marriage because I kept trying to make her happy. I was operating with this faulty framework. So I'm chasing a moving target and she wants me to be this, she wants me to do this. And I'm trying to change these things about me and I didn't feel like I was able to. And I kept asking God, help me change, help me evolve so I can make this marriage work. And so I was resentful about God. I was like, that didn't work. I tried to do that. I felt like that kid in Goonies where he's like, I put this in here and it didn't come true, And I was like, I believed in this and it didn't happen. And I don't know what it was. It was maybe 6 months later after my divorce. I was in my new house. I was there by myself. I didn't have the kids that weekend. And I was in more of a contemplative stage than a mutinous stage. And I was asking God, I was like, God, I really trusted you on that. Why didn't that work? Why didn't you help me change? Yeah. Where were you? How come you didn't help me change to make that marriage work? And it was this one of the 3 times I heard God's voice and he said, son, I never wanted you to become what she wanted you to become. That's why I didn't change you. You were asking for me to make you weaker. I want you to be stronger. All the qualities that people love about you that she criticizes, those are qualities I've given you. That's who you are. And I want you to be the most powerful version of yourself. I'm not going to help you become weaker. And I could only hear that when I let down my freaking resistance and my victim story and me feeling sorry for myself. I could only hear that. I'm sure God had been saying it to me for a long time, but I wasn't listening because I was in this victim mindset. But that became this catalyst for so much shift for me. It's like, oh, I get it now. My job is to become the best version of myself. The most important relationship I have in this life is the relationship I have with myself. And I can't let anything ever compromise that ever again. And
it sounds like you've also rebuilt your relationship with God.
It's totally
different, right?
Completely different.
It's a whole new relationship. So I'm curious from your perspective, right? Because when you're Mormon, it's like we have practices to maintain that relationship. Go to church and take the sacrament and read your Book of Mormon and do home teaching, all the things, right? as you evolve and, bring in more of a spiritual component, right? You work with plant medicine and whatever it may be, right? I get that. What do your spiritual practices look like today? What do you do to connect to God with today?
I read my scriptures every morning. I read, at this point, I just read Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John on repeat.
Yeah.
I just go back through that. Jesus Christ's teachings on how to be the man is the best thing I've ever read out of anything I've ever read. I've read a lot of other spiritual texts on how to live my life. Jesus is my guy. I don't know what Jesus is, it's evolved a lot. I have a lot of questions now. I know what I believe and what I hope, but I don't set on anything I know. But following those teachings helps me to stay centered and grounded on practical application of being better. I meditate. I pray every single morning.
And who do you pray to?
I pray to God.
God, yeah.
Yeah.
It's God for you.
But God is different than the Santa Claus character that I was given in my youth.
It's different than Mormon God.
Yeah. Or Christian God, where there's like some character that looks like us, that's got a white beard and white guy, and he's got, he's got grandfatherly love for us or whatever. I don't experience that God anymore. It's evolved significantly from
How would you describe it today?
I don't know. Yeah. I don't know anything about God. I can experience God. I experience God every day, but there's nothing that I know. I can't understand God. I think trying to understand God is like an ant trying to contemplate
the Milky Way.
The Milky Way, right? Like it's just, it's God is so much bigger than anything we can possibly imagine. And the nuance that makes up what God is so profound that I don't understand God. But I experience God every day in my life.
Yeah. The way I would describe God is that there is an infinite, intelligent force deeply involved in our human experience that has unconditional love for us.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
I agree. That's what I experience.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I experience. And I no longer experience worthiness from God ever.
Beautiful.
This idea, that you're raised, you have to go through this repentance process, remorse and this and that, and proverbially flog yourself over and over again until you get it right. And then God he will finally accept you back into his good graces. None of that. I don't experience any of that. And I'll share just a quick story on that. The first time I really felt that was I was driving my kids to school one morning, and this is post-divorce in the really heavy stage of what I was going through. So I was not the best dad at this time. And I unloaded on my son. He said something that set me off, and he didn't do anything wrong. He's just being himself. And And I'm just redlining, and I don't even fully understand, I'm not processing or super conscious of even my own state. And I'm just like unloaded on him, my frustrations. And I pull up and he gets out of the car and shoulders are slumped and he's walking into school. And I just realized I just dumped all of my bricks that I'm carrying into his backpack, and now he has to carry those today. And immediately that voice kicks in, oh, you're the worst dad on the planet. You suck. You're horrible, blah, blah, blah. And I'm driving off. I'm like, dude, this is going to be the worst day. I'm not going to be able to focus on work. I'm just going to feel horrible about what I did to my son. I'm the worst dad. And this is the third time I heard this voice. I mean, all of them, all three of them, God said, just skip this part. And I was like, what? I didn't understand it at first. Just skip this part. And I was so profound and came through so powerfully that I had to pull over to the side of the road. Wow. And I sat there for a second. I was like, what? And I heard it again. Just skip this part. And what God was telling me, what I processed as I sat there was like, I didn't have to shame myself. I could just get to the good part of being better. And that I could accept myself as a imperfect human in an imperfect world, going through imperfect experiences. And I didn't have to beat myself up about that. And it wasn't like God was saying it was okay that you unloaded that all on your son, but he's saying you're human. And shaming yourself and identifying yourself as a horrible father and as a loser is not what I want you to do.
Not productive for anyone.
It's not productive. You're just going to ruin your whole day. And so I physically had to stop myself from letting that intrusive voice take over. And I was like, okay. I'm going to try this. I'm going to just accept the fact that I made a mistake. I'm going to move on from that, and I'm going to make it better. And I went through the rest of the day. I had a phenomenal day. I felt great. And then I came and picked up my son, and I sat him down, and I had this heart-to-heart conversation with him about how that wasn't his fault and where I was at. And I'm a very imperfect dad, and I'm learning. I'm trying my best to be a good dad for you, but I really messed up, and I'm sorry, son. I'll never do that again. I'll never talk to you like that again. Then I took him out to go do his favorite activity and get his favorite treat. It was this really cool bonding experience. But I skipped the whole shame phase, the whole worthiness stuff. I just skipped all of that and got to the good part of learning and trying to be better.
It's such a beautiful insight. Again, going back to Michael Singer, he always talks about that as human beings, we're perfectly inadequate as humans. We're going to make mistakes. And his thing, he says, is no shame, no blame. You're going to make mistakes. No shame, no blame. Shame and blame are just absolute worthless waste of time. To your point, skip that. Just skip it. Right? Just skip it, and dwelling on it isn't productive. And I think that's such a powerful insight because I think, I catch myself doing it. I see people I work with doing it. I'm just like, the hardest part of it is just when you really beat yourself up on it. And it sounds like it's just a really beautiful example of compassion for yourself, of really having a lot of compassion for yourself in that moment.
It was another one of these singularity moments where it's like, oh, I finally learned something in life that's profound. You can't shame yourself into being better. And shame is not moral. Beating yourself up is not being righteous. It's just being stupid.
Yeah.
And so I've tried to apply that, not imperfectly since then, to skip those phases where you screwed up. Just get to the learning part. It's not justifying behavior. I'm not saying I did it right. It's just saying I'm going to skip all this stuff that's useless and just get to the point where I learn the lesson and get better.
Yeah. It's so inspiring, Adam. I think just everything you're saying just rings so true for me. And I know that there's so many people listening to this who are really going to resonate with your message. And, it's just as men, it's just kind of like a war we all kind of deal with internally. And, you're providing a lot of light and hope for people to kind of navigate it. As we wrap up here, I could talk to you for another hour. Your stories are incredible. I'm curious, it seems like you're in this kind of new phase of your life. You're really strong. You're really rooted in yourself, a lot of self-love. You're becoming the best version of yourself. You got your business that crushes. You've got so many great leaders. I'm sure you got great markets, and you're, new time dad. You got a new baby. You got an amazing relationship. You look like you're in great physical health. Things are really seem like they're humming for you. I'm curious, for the rest of 2026, what are you really excited about?
Oh, the kids. They're my favorite thing on the planet. Kylie and the kids. There's nothing that I enjoy more than spending time with my family. So I know that's kind of maybe sounds regular, not that exciting, but it's the best, man. It's the, like we were talking about before we jumped on this, it's the best return of investment that I've ever had in my life is the time I spend with my family. Outside of that, there's a lot going on. We're blowing up Ninefold. Our goal in the next 6 years is to have it worth over $1 billion at a 35% growth rate. We can do that. 35% growth rate is something we can finance. We're all self-financed, so we've got some big goals. This is exciting to be a part of it. I got the best business partners on the planet. My superpower has always been I surround myself with people way cooler than me. I've always been able to do that. And it shows with my business partners. They're just absolute dogs and studs. And we've got this huge goal for the company. We're launching a big supplement company. I've got a partner that I'm doing that with. We're excited. We've already got it on market. It's a phenomenal product. This is exciting for me. Then coaching, doing my Doughboy coaching on social media. That's been growing rapidly. And so just a lot of cool things. It's super busy. But, life to me is like, my biggest fear when I was growing up was being mediocre. Like I just had that in my head. Like I didn't want to just, do what everybody else did, just check the boxes, go through life. I wanted to have experiences. Like I'm really motivated by that. And some of them are good, some of them are tough, some of them are, really hard, but to have a diversity of life experiences. So at the end of the day, or when we go over to the other side and we're all sitting around the cosmic fireside, we can trade these war stories and these things that you learn and then what you saw and these experiences. And so to me, life is it's not even about money. It's not even about success as much for me as it is about just having really cool experiences and learning.
Well, Adam, I'm excited to have hopefully a lot more cool experiences with you in this life. And then I look forward to sharing them with you on the other side around the fire.
Likewise, Doug, thanks for having me on the show. And it has been an absolute pleasure to meet you in person. You are everything that people have said about you. Your reputation precedes you.
Thank you, brother. Yeah, likewise. Everyone, so many people are telling me you got to get, you actually referred to me on the show multiple times.
Oh, really?
Like you and Adam would jive. And so to actually sit down and do this with you, it's been an absolute honor. So thank you for coming on.
I appreciate it, man.
Thanks, brother.
Thanks.